Hey you guys, it is me, Laura, and I am going to show you a little bit of the English program that we have been using. We're using Foundations from Logic of English, but before I show you the program, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. Logic of English is like a system with various levels set up on learning the language of English, the logic, learning the rules, so that you're not reliant on sight words. The author basically is a linguist, and she says it's easier to remember the rules of English than it is to remember all the different words that you have to read. And obviously, as you read over time, you pick up those words and the fluency develops. But this program is actually an all-inclusive language arts program. So it's got your phonics, it's got handwriting, it's got spelling, it's got reading, it's got grammar, it's got fluency, it's got comprehension. It's all in there. And I really wish that I had started Samuel with this program and not other things, but I didn't know about it. And I feel like there are very few curriculums that I feel like I will use, like sold on using for all of my kids. I'm totally willing to do whatever works for their learning styles. If that means different curriculums for all my kids, whatever that means. But I feel like the basis of this program is so solid and it's so adaptable that I will likely use it for all of my kids. It's just so easy to work with. And basically the idea is that it's really giving kids the tools that they need so that they can read anything, so that they can spell anything, so that they can have the grammar and the fluency and everything that they need. And I will actually link below the YouTube channel for Logic of English. She has some really great instructional stuff and more information on there that would be super helpful if you're interested in understanding the theory behind the program, why she wrote it, all of that good stuff. And I noticed that one of the things that Samuel was frustrated with is that some of the vowels would sound slightly different for words, or things wouldn't quite make sense. And the nice thing about Logic of English is that it answers all of those questions, all those exceptions, all of those things. So I'm going to turn this camera around and show you a little bit about the program. Okay, so this is the Foundations program, and the Logic of English, there's like a trade book that you can read. There's also the Foundations program, which is geared to kids about the ages 4 to 7, and then there's the Essentials program, which is kids, I think 8 to 10 or 8 to 12, I don't remember. And so this is Foundations. They have Foundations A, B, C, and D. And typically, I think you would do A and B in one year and C and D in another year. We're going through it a little bit slower, but that's part of the beauty of this program, is that it's super flexible. So when you get the program, you'll get a whiteboard, which I don't have here, and your textbook, your Doodling Dragons book, and then you'll get a set of cards that are handwriting sand cards, and depending on whether you're doing cursive or manuscript, you'll get the ones that match. And the program, they encourage you to do cursive because it's easier for children to write, and it solves the problem of some of those reversals, and it gives kids an ability to write faster. With Samuel, he had already been learning a lot of print, so it's been kind of tricky for him to switch over, so I'm really lenient with him. But I do think a lot of what their theory is about starting with cursive makes a lot of sense, but you can totally pick whatever makes sense for your kids. So you'll get those, and then you'll get the phonogram cards, which is just the letter on one side and the sounds on the other, and it's got, for every sound, because let's see, like this G and J, it has a word so that you can see how the sound would be in a word. So big, G, Jim, J, and this is for the letter G. So it kind of gives you that idea there, and you get a set of those. And these aren't all of them, these are just the ones we've got out. And then you'll also get, you can see, word tiles in there, and then these are game cards, which are just smaller cards that have the phonograms on them. And there's 3 sets that you pick 2. We actually have all 3, but there's the manuscript, the book face and cursive, because the idea is they want children to be able to recognize letters in all the different formats. So this is your main book. This is the teacher's book here. And you'll have 5 lessons and a review, just to kind of go through. Oh, and there's also, which I don't have pictured here because I've torn mine all up to go into my folder box, is a student workbook as well. So this part is really, really good to read, and basically one thing that she really emphasizes is that for some kids their fine motor skills are behind. So if a child is not doing as well as the handwriting, don't let that hold them back. Just be really gentle and lenient and kind of go at their own pace. And so then here at the beginning it tells you what materials are needed for each lesson. It also tells you at the beginning of the lessons so that you can grab everything that you need. Correlates with Common Core standards if that's something that is important to you. And then you get to the lesson, and the lessons start out just teaching you very basic, like the sounds of the letter. You learn how the sounds are formed with your mouth, the difference between nasal sounds and sounds that are blocked and sounds that are open, and consonants and vowels and all of that. And as you look here, you'll have a list of things that you need, teacher tips, and then multi-sensory fun. So if you have a child who's particularly hands-on, these are especially good options for you to kind of extend the lesson, or to an additional way to kind of make it really active for your child. And it's got book lists and all sorts of fun things. Anytime you see a box like this, it means that there is a correlating worksheet, and it tells you what worksheet will be with that from the workbook. And so in this case, the first thing that you're doing is compound words. So instead of starting by gluing sounds together in a word like at, gluing it together to make cat, that can be difficult. So you start with words. So you have this list in here, and they'll have in their workbook a sheet with pictures of all these things. So you'll say rain, bow, and they're supposed to figure out what that is and point to it. Foot, ball. So they find the football. And so this just gives them the idea of gluing things together. It's a very, very gentle way to start. And then with handwriting, you start by learning the basic strokes. And you learn the baseline, you learn the midline, you learn the top line, and you learn the strokes. And it's got different instructions. So if you're doing cursive, you'll do the green boxes. If you're doing print, you'll do the blue boxes. And so it kind of teaches you. And there's always lots and lots of options for ways to do this. I actually never use the handwriting pages in the worksheet, in the workbook, because my son doesn't like them. We just always do it either with shaving cream or salt letters or on his whiteboard, and he prefers that. And the thing is that it's flexible. And then here they have writing on paper. And so the lessons start out like that. They're pretty short at the beginning. They do get longer, but we often break a lesson up into several parts. So I'm going to come here more towards the back and show you the lesson that we're working on right now, just to give you an idea of what we do. So we have a phonemic awareness activity here. Now, one thing that I use sometimes, there are 2 apps that you can download. There's Doodling Dragons, which I'll show you that book in a minute, and there's also the Logic of English app, and it's got all the phonograms, and you can tap on them and it'll tell you the sounds that it makes. And sometimes we use that incorporated in here just to add a little bit of fun. So here you have phonemic awareness as one section, and learning the phonogram n, handwriting, so you'll learn how to write the phonogram n, and then you have phonogram practice, which is just general review, words, which you'll have a spelling list, and spelling is taught very differently here because they're not teaching you to memorize long lists of words. They're teaching you how to sound it out. And so there's always 3 words, and then there's an optional 2 words, so you can see what you want to do based on your child's level. They teach you how to say it, how to pronounce it, the markings for example, with QU, you will always underline those because they always come together. And so it teaches you that, and then it gives you hints to give the child while they're trying to spell in a sentence that they can do. And so you're not going to do these words over and over and over again because you're trying to teach the child how to spell it phonetically rather than just memorizing a list of words. And they always have multi-sensory activities to do as well. And there are vocabulary words that they use from the spelling too, and vocabulary activities. And then you have reading activities, which sometimes this is a worksheet, sometimes this is a reader. One of the cool things about the readers here is that as the child is starting out, you have the reader, which is in the back of the workbook. You put that together, and then they have the pictures separately. So they have to read the words on the page, and then they can either draw or cut out the picture that matches, and then they can read the book again. In fact, I'm going to grab the first reader for you. Okay, so this is the very first reader, and so your child will go through first, and it is a blank book. And so you have them read the words with you, with no pictures. And then, once they've gone through the whole book and read the words, then my son preferred to cut out the pictures instead of draw them. And so he cut out the pictures that matched with each one, and he glued them on the correct page, and then he could read it again. And so now he can practice reading these words, and his next story, I think, will be combining more than one word per page. And so that's kind of how this is set up. There's also one other thing I want to show you. At the end of each section, which is about every 5 chapters, there is a review lesson. And at the beginning, you'll notice there's a list here of the different skills that were taught, and there's a list of numbers. All of the things that have a number 1, those are things that should be mastered by the end of this, by where the child is. Number 2 should be things that they are working on and doing well. And number 3 are things that they've really just kind of been introduced to. They need to kind of know about them, but they don't need to be proficient in them yet. And all of those numbers are explained farther in the beginning in the note to parents and teachers. And so you come, and the review is usually really fun activities that you do. You can use basketballs. Usually there's a worksheet or 2, blending sounds, handwriting, and phonic assessment. And with all of these, they're all flexible too. Like, for example, my son does not like using basketballs and doing all this stuff. He just wants to do it. So we just omit the basketball and just go through them. And usually, because it's just him and not a full class, we don't do like you're segmenting these words here in this one. So dad, you're breaking it apart, d, a, d. So I wouldn't have him do all of these, just enough for me to get an idea of how hard or easy that is for him. And then what you can do is, once you get to the end, if you need practice, these are all the different activities that you can do if an area needs a little bit more work. So if you take the assessment, for example, and find out that your child is struggling in an area that they should have mastered, you can go back to these activities, and instead of maybe moving on to the next lesson the next day, you can take some extra time with some of these until they get to a mastery level, and then you move on. And so that is kind of how this is set up. And there's also this book that comes with it. It's called Doodling Dragons, and every time that you introduce a new phoneme, you read this book together. And so each letter, so a or a ah is a. So a ah, those are the sounds that it makes. And so you read this, and it's going to have all of those sounds. A ah. Apples and ants, snakes ate grapes, wash the walls. And then there's a few activities that you can do, but this helps your child to see all the different sounds. And it's fun too, as an adult, to kind of look back and notice some of the rules that I didn't notice before, like when does a C say k, and when does it say s? And so you can notice a few little patterns as you look through. And these are all just really silly, nonsensical kind of things, which of course children love, but it's another way for them to kind of learn the sound. This program has been really good for us, and I have seen a lot of improvement for Samuel, and his frustration level has been super low, and he's really starting to apply things, especially spelling, when he's trying to write stuff out on his own. He's figuring so much more of it out, picking up on it so much faster. And I love the flexibility of this program. Usually it takes us about 3 days to finish a lesson instead of 1, but that's a pace that works really well for us. And I love that it's not trying, there's not levels in the sense of first grade, kindergarten, second grade, whatever. So you're not trying to rush or fit in or feel behind. It's just a matter of following your child's lead when your child is ready. This program is made for kids about ages 4 to 7. 8-year-olds can use it too. The only reason that they would suggest you not use it with an 8-year-old is if they feel like it's too babyish, which it just totally depends on your 8-year-old. But overall, this program is really good. We're almost done with level A, and then we'll be going to level B. And as you work up in the program, you get a lot more of comprehension in your English program. You get a lot more of fluency and things like that. And I just feel like this is such a good base program for English. And it's a little bit pricey, but when you think about getting a spelling program, getting a reading program, getting a handwriting program, and on and on and on, it's really not that bad. And once you have this stuff, all you need to get for future children is a new workbook, which is really nice. And I also love, if you're planning on homeschooling more than one child, I love the flexibility of this because, for example, like I said, with Samuel, he doesn't like getting out balls and doing all this extra stuff. He just wants to do what he needs to do, get it done, and move on. But my Timothy, my current youngest, will be middle child, is very different. He loves games and interactive elements. And so I can use the same program, pace it for my kids however they need to pace it, adapt it however they need it adapted, and it can really work well. And I love that I'm setting them foundations so that they're not, so that they're really understanding English. I feel like doing this program with my kids, I'm learning a lot about how the English language works, how rules work. I'm a terrible speller, but when you learn some of these things, my spelling improves and things like that. And so I really am appreciating this, and I think that it's going to set a good, solid foundation for them as they're learning the English language. And I also love this program because you can do so much with this. You can have, when you're introducing new letters, it's got ideas for parties and activities and all sorts of stuff you can do. You can really expand it, or you can really condense it depending on what your needs are. And I just am really, really excited that I found this program, and it has been working really well for us. I'm excited to get level B. And I want you guys to let me know if you have any questions about this program, anything I can show you, anything like that. I'd love to share. If you've used it, let us know what you think below. And I think that's pretty much it. This has been a great program for us, and I believe that this is going to stay a staple all through our homeschooling years in our house. So that is all that I have to share for you. Like I said, I will link below the channel for Logic of English on YouTube. Definitely check it out. There's definitely some helpful information there that will explain way more than I've been able to do. And it was actually watching those videos that sold me on this program. Understanding the thinking behind it has been just really amazing. This has been excellent, and I'm super excited about it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll talk to you later. Bye.